We live in a world saturated with headlines, notifications, streaming video, and endless scrolling feeds. Every day brings more information than any generation in history has ever faced. Yet, in the middle of this constant flow, many people feel disoriented, distracted, and unsure what truly matters. The problem is not a lack of information. The problem is the loss of a shared framework that helps people interpret reality and understand their place within it. Civilizations are not held together by technology, financial markets, or political systems alone. They endure because people share beliefs about truth, authority, responsibility, and the purpose of human life. When those shared beliefs weaken, institutions may remain standing, but social trust erodes, communities fragment, and a sense of common purpose fades. For many centuries, Western civilization developed around a worldview that acknowledged a higher moral order. Laws were shaped by moral reasoning. Universities pursued truth as something to be discovered, and art and architecture reflected the belief that life had meaning beyond material success. Authority was understood not merely as power, but as responsibility directed toward the common good. This shared vision provided structure to society. It defined duties and responsibilities, established limits, and affirmed the dignity of the human person. It gave people a sense of belonging within a moral universe larger than themselves. In contrast, modern secular culture often presents itself as neutral and value-free. Yet neutrality rarely exists in practice. When transcendent authority is dismissed, authority does not disappear. It shifts. Political power, social movements, and cultural institutions step in to define norms, enforce values, and shape public life. When truth is no longer received as something objective, it becomes something constructed. When moral order weakens, personal preference begins to function as law. When shared purpose fades, identity becomes the primary source of meaning. The consequences are visible across modern society. Public life grows increasingly fragmented when shared moral reference points disappear. Without common standards, disagreement quickly turns into moral condemnation. Without shared limits, freedom turns into unchecked license. Without a higher reference point, political conflicts take on the emotional intensity once reserved for religious disputes. Technology accelerates this fragmentation. Social media platforms reward outrage, amplify conflict, and reinforce group identity. Algorithms feed users content that confirms existing beliefs rather than challenging them. Online crowds assemble within minutes, deliver judgments instantly, and disperse without responsibility for the consequences. This is more than technological change. It is social fragmentation unfolding at digital speed. When moral frameworks collapse, human beings do not become more rational. They become more tribal. Group loyalty replaces the search for truth. Emotional allegiance replaces careful reasoning. Competing moral systems emerge, each claiming legitimacy, yet none capable of commanding universal agreement. This instability is not accidental. It is structural. A society that rejects objective truth struggles to maintain consensus. A culture that forgets its inheritance loses continuity. A civilization, uncertain of its foundations, begins to doubt its own worth and purpose. History reveals a recurring pattern. When sacred frameworks weaken, societies experiment with substitutes. Political ideologies, social movements, or technocratic systems. These substitutes promise unity and progress, yet often deepen division because they lack the moral depth required to sustain shared meaning. The result is cultural fatigue, declining confidence, falling birth rates, weakening civic participation, and widespread uncertainty about the future. A civilization, unsure of its purpose, loses the will to endure. Yet decline is not inevitable. Human communities have renewed themselves before by recovering a moral horizon larger than individual preference. Stable social order requires a shared understanding of justice, truth, and human dignity rooted in something beyond shifting opinion. The crisis we face is therefore not merely political or technological. It is theological in nature. Every society answers the same enduring questions. What is the human person? What is freedom for? What authority is legitimate? What constitutes justice? If these questions are answered without reference to transcendent truth, instability follows. If they are answered within a moral order greater than individual will, coherence becomes possible. The turbulence of our time is not random. It is diagnostic. It reveals a civilization searching for substitutes after losing confidence in its foundations. Some look to ideology for answers. Some place their hopes in technology. Some turn to the state for solutions. None of these can fully replace a moral order grounded in enduring truth. Clarity begins when we recognize that civilizations are sustained by belief, memory, and fidelity across generations. Cultural renewal does not require nostalgia. It requires recovery. Recovery of moral coherence, intellectual confidence, and the understanding that freedom flourishes within order. History is not measured in daily headlines. It unfolds across centuries. Seen from this longer perspective, the present moment is not merely a crisis, but a turning point. Societies that rediscover their moral foundations regain confidence. Communities that remember their inheritance recover cohesion. People who think beyond the present regain hope. To see our age clearly is not to despair. It is to recognize that renewal begins when a civilization remembers what made it possible in the first place. And with that recognition comes responsibility and the possibility of renewal.